Good morning, I'm Chad C. from C Real Estate here in Richmond, Virginia. Today I want to talk to my country friends, to people who typically don't live in the city or in the suburbs that immediately surround the city, but they live a little bit on the outskirts and they have septic systems. Now, before I go further, sometimes you can find a house in the city or in the suburbs that has a septic system. Public water and sewer was just never run down this particular street, and maybe they have a well and a septic system. But for the most part, we're talking about people who live in the rural areas, and septic systems are contained on your lot where you live, and they are little sewage treatment plants is one way to look at it. There are all kinds of septic systems, and we won't talk about that today. But what I do want to talk about is the importance of maintaining and protecting your septic system. So the most common form of a septic system consists of a septic tank, where all of your drain lines in your house go to this tank. The tank fills up, and this is just very general description. It goes from the tank into something called a distribution box, and then that waste is distributed down multiple drain lines into what we call the drain field, and all that waste is absorbed into the ground, and it just keeps going. Now, whether you have that type of system or what we would call today an alternative septic system for land that just doesn't work well with a conventional septic system, regardless, it requires some attention. It requires you being aware of it and protecting it. What am I talking about? Well, I've heard of situations where people would drive heavy trucks across their yard where the drain field is, and those drain lines being crushed by those heavy trucks, therefore obstructing the flow of waste and just messing things up. It's a situation that really stinks. I've also heard of situations where septic lines and components in the septic system have been cut or broken. I did that. We installed a pool in my backyard. I knew where the force main was, the line that was sending the waste to my drain field. Had a good idea where it was, but I didn't know well enough, because sure enough, it got cut as we were installing this pool, and we had to have people come out quickly to remedy that situation. So you want to be careful when you're digging around in your yard when you have a septic system. Another thing to pay attention to is growth over your septic system. I was guilty of that too, where my distribution box is. I had forgotten where it was in my yard, and I allowed trees and plants to grow up over it. And fortunately, I was reminded fairly early where it was, so now I've kept all that cut. Because if you forget where your drain field is, you forget where the distribution box is, and if over the years trees and plants grow up in that area, you can imagine the roots get into the system. They'll destroy a distribution box, they'll get into your drain field, obstruct those lines, and the next thing you know, you might have to start all over, just put in a whole new septic system. You might have to remove all those trees, and in the process, there's some danger and damage in your septic system. So the video today is just to remind those of you who have a septic system to give it some love, give it some attention, keep it in your mind. It doesn't require a ton of maintenance, but you do have to think about it to keep it from being damaged. Hope you have a great week.